Hey gang, welcome to another video. Today I've got for you a Warframe opinion jump scare. Ooh, scary. It's a little past Halloween, I know, but I've just got some opinions for you today, some hot takes, if you will. A little bit of a generic topic, but I've got some things I want to talk about, and you guys seem to like to listen to me yap, so I'm going to be sharing some of my 6 hottest Warframe takes. It used to be 5, but the 6th one I came up while I was recording some background footage, and I think it's really important. So not only is it highly ranked because it's important, but I think it's really prevalent. So it made it onto the list. This is normally 5 because that's a nice generic number, but it's 6 now. And feel free to share some of your opinions in the comments section as well. This is, every post of mine is a post of discussion, right? I want you guys to discuss. Just don't be mean to each other in the comments. If you want to be mean to me, that's fine. That's chill. Just don't be mean to each other. So this is going to be mostly a audio experience, like a lot of my other videos, some minor visual content, some minor editing, text and whatnot for folks who can't hear so well or are in the middle of doing something else, right? So feel free to put me down and get to whatever you were doing before. So much love for you guys. Thank you for especially the last video. My goodness, I know the Charlie thumbnail was a bit, we could call a little bit clickbait, but whatever. Thank you for the hype, subs, likes, comments, literally everything. I am blessed to make videos for you. This is your channel. I just make the content. So if there's videos you want to see in the future, leave those in the comments, and let's get started with a so fun discussion of my 6 hottest Warframe takes. And we're starting at hot take number 6 here. Do note that as the video goes on, the takes will become more and more what I believe to be a little, not combative, but a little more hot per se. So number 6 here is I think movement is still underutilized in Warframe at a large scale. So granted, I will say with the new update, things like Uriel's 1, the grappling launchers in the Predator Rebellion, Arcane Circumvent, Melee Kareen, these are really, this is exactly what I'm talking about actually. So this one almost got like honorable mention, but I still believe it's true. I think that especially we're getting more assets that use movement, but I think more enemies that utilize like attacks worth dodging are something that's really underutilized. I would really like to see more of that. Also some more content, and this will go into one of my future takes here, but I really think that like the nice thing about spy missions is that they encourage you to move a lot, and I understand that movement is kind of the basis through which all content is already done, and movement is like 30 to 50% of the dopamine that you get in a mission. So I totally get that, but I think game modes that relied purely on movement would be something really interesting. Again, does movement mean that you get all of your other content done quicker? Yes, but I also think that stuff like a spy mission or like some sort of, this is a bad way to put it, but like a parkour course or like something you had to speed run, really, where speed was maybe the main priority. Like I really enjoy speedrunning capture missions as Titania. I'm not necessarily like a movement test in the traditional sense, but not eating concrete and drywall every 2 seconds is like a pretty exciting thing to do. Additionally, like I mentioned, like I kind of mentioned before, I would like more attacks to dodge, and I'm not really sure if I'm like alone in this. I'm MR30, about 5,000 hours, and I still get a good bit of dopamine from dodging blitz and heat Eximus blasts with like side or forward rolls. Like if you roll into a heat Eximus, you don't get knocked over, you don't take the heat proc, and I think some more tougher enemies, not like tough with like HP, but having like little mechanics. I'm not asking for a bunch here. Like I still think Nox are like pretty interesting enemies, the Grineer Nox, where if you kill them, they leave a little toxin field behind. So if you run through that, you have the chance to get one shot depending on what frame you're playing. Like 60% of the frames can get one shot by a Nox suicide bomb. So I think that's really interesting, something to be aware of while you're doing combat. And I get that Warframe is more of a looter shooter, more of a horde shooter. Having some interesting enemies, maybe like I don't know, an enemy that has like a railgun that has a telegraphed like outlined attack. If you get hit by it, you get nullified or lifted for enemies to like beat on you like a pinata or something. I just think it'd be cool to have more stuff to dodge. I'm not saying that Warframe has to be a super mechanically difficult game. People talk about that all the time. I understand the perspective of the difficulty pilled player, but ultimately, like I just want like superior movement to be rewarded. I think it'd be really cool and like a little bit of a challenge. I'm not saying it has to be in every piece of content, but having like more Eximus types maybe to dodge, just more attacks to dodge in general would be really neat. And then having more like assets like Arcane Doubleback, Arcane Circumvent, more movement based abilities maybe. That's not really what I'm looking for, but just more reason to get super good with the movement and dodging and having more rewards tied to that, I think would be really cool. Like one of the ideas I had is something similar to Rolling Guard, except it has, instead of a iframe, instead of like invulnerability, it'll cleanse status effects, but it has no cooldown on backflip. So you can cleanse no matter what the negative status effect is, you can backflip, it'll cleanse it, and it has no cooldown. The trade-off is that you have to do a backflip, which is a lot less intuitive than a roll, and then it won't have the invulnerability, it'll just cleanse negative status. So I thought that would be really cool. Just more stuff, like more quality of life, and more excellent stuff too, by the way. This is a huge part. So right now people usually use, like, I think it's like Toxic Flight and like Firewalker. If they're not using the drift mods or Prime Sure-Footed, they're usually going to be using excellent mods like that. I really think that more like teleport rush augments, like stuff that really encourages like quality of life, gives you more parkour velocity, like you know, not to say that I really don't mind putting my mandatory government issued Tau Forged yellow parkour velocity shard on every single frame I own. I don't really mind that. I gotta spend them somehow, but I just think more assets towards parkour velocity, towards movement, more things that reward good movement, whether that is the enemies attacking you or arcanes that play towards movement like Circumvent and Kareen. So yeah, this one is less like prevalent, and honestly I was going to honorable mention it, but I still thought it belonged on this list, despite DE's recent really great improvement in that direction. Hot take number 5, moving up in the heatness, if you will, is that spy missions are some of the best content available by DE. This one is the first one I could definitely see someone disagreeing with. And are spy missions perfect in their current iteration? Absolutely not. But spy missions also haven't received any work in the last X many years. I'm not really sure. You know, spy missions don't really, they're kind of the antithesis of what Warframe's kind of meta, quote unquote, is. I'm not saying that Warframe's meta is bad or whatever. There's like a larger conversation here about damage being this like fix-all solution to everything. But spy missions, they don't really require damage. Having knowledge about the vault you're engaging in and the mechanics of it, especially if they're more complicated stuff like Lua Spy, certain Corpus vaults, and even some certain Grineer vaults, knowing like tricks around them to make it easier. And obviously, like, just knowledge overrides like everything in these cases. Like, I could walk into most spy vaults with a unranked level 0 no weapons Excalibur, and I could still get through. And there's something kind of nice about content that works like that, content that is indifferent about the damage that you have. You know, and even if, again, I know you could cheese most spy content with Wukong or Limbo or Loki or whatever, but even then, that's just strategy. I still find that to be really fun, and also it gives those frames something to do, right? Like the argument people make with Loki is that you know, the frame really isn't bad, even though I kind of think he is. That's a different long conversation, whatever. We have a tier list at the end of the month for the new year, so we'll deal with that when we get there. But you know, a lot of frames, their abilities or their entire identity circulates around like movement and like something that spy would encourage. And so I think it'd be really cool, like, if the spy mechanic, it doesn't have to be spy missions exactly, but the kind of cool mechanics that lie in spy missions could totally be applied to like actual popular combat game modes. Like, imagine if you're playing a survival and every once in a while a spy vault opens up and one teammate can go in and take care of it and add like a minute or two to your survival timer to make rotations go faster. So now you have like 3 like DPS for maybe 2 DPS frames, a support to help them, and then like a Loki or a Wukong or whatever whose job it is to go do the spy vault when it opens up. Right, I just think the spy vaults have so many cool mechanics, and I wish there was more of that in like the EDA, in like the raid-esque. I know people use that word a lot. The raid-esque content, more mechanics. I think spy vault, especially Lua Spy, is some of the highest tier stuff, and that incorporates the movement too that I mentioned. Right, so I understand why people don't like spy missions. I totally get it. But incorporating them and like the mechanics they possess in smaller doses, I think would be kind of sick. I think a big reason people don't like them is due to burnout, right? Sometimes you're required to spam a vault for a certain reward that you're shooting for. Like I had to farm Avara. Again, I enjoyed it because I'm a sick freak. I didn't even have an invis frame at that time. So yeah, when you're doing spy missions, any piece of content in Warframe, really, oh my god, Valis Undermine maybe like have a mental breakdown. If you're doing almost any piece of content not in moderation, it's just burnout bait. That's all it is. And DE, I think, has to be a little bit more careful about that. So once you finish that content, there's no rewards, no real incentive, and that's not always the case. You know, something I really enjoy about spy missions, and it was a lot more prevalent back in the day, but there were mods you could only get, and there still is, I guess, mods you could only get from spy missions. So there was this incentive for players who were spy inclined, right, to spam run those, do what they enjoy, sell off those mods or drops they got for platinum to players who were like, I can't be bothered to do spy missions, right? And that's kind of like my favorite part of the Warframe Platinum ecosystem. And there's a lot of things I like about the Plat ecosystem, to be fair. So one of my favorites is this. It's that players can like get that kind of what's the term, like they can observe how much they don't want to do something, like the opportunity cost of like, I don't really want to go do spy missions, but this guy's the spy guy. He does spy missions all day and he's got like a zillion of these drops, and we can trade. Maybe the spy guy doesn't like doing eidolon hunts, right? So you can trade things back and forth, even though that's an old piece of whatever. I'll make a video on that at some point. But anyways, the thing I liked about spy missions is their unique placement in the ecosystem, where it's like someone who was good at spy, that was like something kind of cool. Like you had, you know, unique drops, unique rewards tied to the spy missions, and people who liked to run them could make platinum. I know I made a good amount of platinum back in my day through that method. And you know, obviously, like spy missions are kind of like, it's like a muscle a little bit, right? Like because spy missions don't come out anymore, nobody's trained to do them, nobody's brain is ready to do them. Like I'm sure you guys like, I'd still do my Archon hunts most weeks. It's completely obvious how the community sees spy missions, because oh my god forbid you get an Archon hunt spy mission and your teammates are acting like it's their first day on planet Earth and they just learned what a keyboard and mouse are, or controller if you're on console or whatever. It's absolutely insane. So yeah, again, I understand if you disagree. Again, these are opinions, so I'm not interested in hearing factual rebuttal, because obviously these are just my thoughts. I'd like to hear this discussed, but I really think the spy missions are, at least the mechanics in them. I'm not saying spy missions have to be re-added verbatim, but I think a lot of the cool stuff going on with spy missions, their unique place in the ecosystem of like the market, I think was really interesting, and I would really like to hear you guys' thoughts on this one. I would like a lot of the spy stuff to be applied to the better game modes, sprinkled in there. You know, like I know the concept of survival missions is that there's another Tenno operative on the inside, like looting something while you make a distraction in survival. What if you got the chance to play as that other Tenno, or like maybe your team splits into 2 or into 3s, and like 2 people are doing the stealthy part of the survival mission, and the 2 people are making a ruckus in the survival mission. I don't know. I have all sorts of crazy ideas, but anyway, yeah. 5, I think spy missions are some of the best content available, especially some of the mechanics involved, and I think it's very underutilized by DE, even though I understand why. Let's move on to number 4. Number 4, we're getting hotter here. Number 4, I would be happier if HELMINTH was never created in the first place. And wording is very key here. I'm mostly fine with the way that HELMINTH stands nowadays. In its current iteration, I think DE is doing a better job with it. But in my view, it contributes to another hot takes problem, which is the hottest one on this list, but we'll worry about that later. This, you know, for some people this isn't a problem, but I kind of don't like that some of Warframes just have awful abilities I'll never cast. And like HELMINTH works with that, because it means that Ice Wave never has to be cast in my entire life. I don't have to waste an ability. And there's something like neat about that. Augments are also a huge part of this, with things like Freeze, Force, and Shock Trooper, where it's like there's an ability I would otherwise never cast, but I can augment it off. These are like band-aids, and I understand, because the HELMINTH is like the medic, right? Dropping band-aids everywhere. And it's not to say, again, like there are so many cool synergies that come together to make such a positive experience with the HELMINTH system. Like there are things that make you feel really, really creative, like freaking like 4, 5, 6 head, or make your frame like with a really glaring weakness feel much better to play. You know, in the case of Banshee, right? Banshee basically needs a HELMINTH option, and you guys everyone's a contrarian now, so like feel free to argue with me, but you need to like HELMINTH on survivability, whether it's Resonator, whether it's Gloom, whether it's Evade, whether it's what's the other one, I forget, man, whatever. Anyway, there are like some frames who are either outdated or just by the nature of their kit need the HELMINTH system. But like what my kind of the basis of my take is, I wish I could just go back in time and like Don Cheadle Thanos the HELMINTH, dude, because ultimately, like, while I never remove it today, it sometimes feels like an excuse for a Warframe to have a completely ass-useless ability, or like a huge hole in their kit, and that frustrates me. you know, the best frames in the game don't really need the helmet, like, or not best frames, the best designed frames in the game don't need the helmet system, but they'll go ahead and use it from time to time because it's strong, and that's cool, and that's fine. Again, I like creativity. Warframe ultimately is a build crafting game, in my opinion. This is like the biggest thing that Warframe is a build crafting game. You put up together awesome builds, and you know, some of them are pretty close in strength, but like the way you do things, you know, engineers a certain dopamine reaction in your head, and it's nice to be creative, and the more options you have in a build crafting game, generally the better that game is going to be. But you know, you lose a part of your frame's identity when you helmet an ability off, and I get it's all creativity. I'm not trying to be like a purist here. I'm always going to be someone who wants more options for players, but if I had to like choose between just having better designed frames on release and like buffs and nerfs, which would be very occasional, obviously D's already very like you know, not they don't buff or nerf frequently. If I could have just better designed frames with moderate buffs or nerfs here and there, as opposed to the helmet system, I would take the better designed frames every single time. And again, I think my opinions would change if things like Banshee and Ice Wave didn't exist, but the helmet just holds them together, and I'm not really a massive fan of that. It's really, for me, I think the big thing is that my favorite frames are some of the best designed frames. I would say, like, when I think about it, like the best design frames to me are like probably Harrow, Gauss, Uriel, who just came out. Like, these frames have such united kits where like no ability is really a dud. There's a lot of synergy within the kit, you know, to the point where you're like, I don't even really want a helmet. Like, sometimes you'll do it for fun and just be like, oh, this, and maybe a build like has a unique synergy that you really like, but like the base frame works so well out the box, and a lot of outdated frames just aren't like that, and they just have useless abilities. And like, there is a certain sense of dopamine to playing a well-designed frame the way they were intended to be played by the designer. Uriel really woke me up to this, where it's like, I don't even like, I did like a Sobek heat setup with thermal transfer that I like enjoyed, and it was fine, but I'm like, I want to just play base Uriel. I don't really want to do all this. I feel that way when I play Pillage Harrow too, or Evade Harrow sometimes even, where it's just like, I just want to play the base frame. Like, this frame was very clearly designed with this gameplay loop in mind, and the way it's executed is just so beautiful. So yeah, again, 4, I would be happier if Helminth was never created in the first place, but that comes with like some, well, the time spent engineering the Helminth system would have been spent buffing and nerfing and reworking like certain frames and coming out with better designed frames who have more whole kits. This number 4 here is very paramount to understanding my number 1 take, so just kind of keep this one in the back of your noggin if you can. Let's move on. Number 3, I really don't like niche weird spaghetti code mechanics. I've made my opinion on this one very known. The reasons are kind of like consistency, the ability to educate, math is math, you know, the Incredibles meme, and it leads to like a new player compounding negative experience. Those are some of the notes I have before I read off the script, but I understand that spaghetti code is part of the game and the culture for Warframe. I get it. And for one, I understand its charm. I get its charm. I get it. Some of my favorite YouTube channels cover these weird interactions. But also, like, let me be really, really clear before I continue. I am talking about straight up spaghetti code, not weird niche interactions that work because of X and Y. There's a lot of super cool interactions that have a logical pathway drawn. It might be hard for like less advanced players to understand. They might be a little niche, might require a little bit of forbidden ball knowledge, right? But they make for insane builds that can be explained from an educational perspective. Might it require a Harvard degree in modding? Maybe, but like, if I'm to be an educator and teaching is what I enjoy, I'm very passionate about this game. I need to be able to teach something. My main example here would be multiplicative gun CO for like zero reason that we can't explain. It's just in the code written that way. For those who aren't aware, basically this is like galvanized aptitude, a galvanized shot. Basically those are supposed to be additive to things like serration, and that's a pretty good damage buff. But on some of these weapons like the Stalta and Aeolak are the ones, Quelor I think, I'm not really sure, those ones, they basically, for some reason, it's multiplicative, which acts like a Mirage Eclipse. If you're not aware, that additive versus multiplicative is a insane difference. Multiplicative acuity when it was bugged. You can't, like, I can't really explain to a player why multi-gun CO works the way it does. It's just there. It's just the way it is. The sky is blue or whatever. And there's no ability to really like educate there. It's not something you can teach. It's just like a goofy ass piece of code. And you know, there would be more to say, or there'd be less to say about this if DE didn't already struggle with damage communication, which I have a whole video piece on, by the way. I think it's a really great video. A little bit boring, maybe you could say, but I think it's really important. Layered on top of that can lead to such a frustrating experience for especially new players, where like, oh, this works because there's a bug. Okay, very cool. New players are already struggling with how to mod, and so now you have these little bugs, and I get that most new players aren't even gonna know they exist, and so out of sight, out of mind, it's not harmful. But for me, even as like a veteran, I still find it a little bit annoying that like certain bugs, or like the Mutilus Cernos scales like 4 different ways if you're using a charged shot or non-charged shot or tap, whatever. It's just frustrating. I know a lot of players like this kind of stuff, and quite frankly, I think it's pretty neat. But for me, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like not being able to explain to a player how something works, especially when it's leading to insanely strong builds, because now you have a damage cap stall to build, and like a player is like, this is so cool, I want to learn how it works, and it's like, oh, this is actually because of an unintended feature that's been in the game for I don't know how long. Like, math is math, dude. I don't know, this interaction works and we don't fucking know why. It's just goofy, and it just like, obviously there's a spectrum for it, where it's like certain Warframe abilities interact with weapons like in really unique ways, like you know, Flechette orbs or Nullstar can like grab Nourish. It's just like, how is a new player ever supposed to understand that? Like, I don't know what they're called, but like the abilities that can kind of inherit weapon buffs. Like, how is a player supposed to? That's one of the strongest mechanics in the game. How is a player supposed, like Arachne, whatever? Like, how is a player supposed to get that? A new player. Like, my problem is that I think the big pull to a lot of players with Warframe is the build crafting stuff, and Warframe, you know, does not really advertise some of the coolest stuff. And I'm not saying like remove the interactions, it's kind of what I'm getting at here, but to make them more intentional, explained pieces of the game. Like, are they bugs? Especially when it comes to multi-gun CO, that is a bug as far as I'm concerned. But like when we're talking about stuff like Nourish on Nullstar, or on Flechette Orb, or on Cataclysmic Gate, I think it even works on that. Like, we're talking about things that are not bugs, not exactly super intended, I don't think. But whatever it is, doesn't really matter, right? It just needs to be explained, because Warframe is a build crafting game, and by not explaining a lot of these weird interactions, we are robbing players of like some level of excitement. And I get it, YouTube is a huge part. Warframe YouTube is so, oh god, I'll make a video on this too at some point, so overly saturated by like guide and educational content, and I get it, because quite frankly, it's my favorite content to make, right? So I get it. Eventually players will learn how Nullstar works, whatever. I understand that, or how weapon abilities work. But, you know, I wish DE would explain it, because I think a lot of players are robbed of what could be a really fun experience. So yeah, 3. I don't like the niche weird spaghetti code mechanics. I just don't. Especially ones that are explicitly bugs. And I need to be really clear again, I love the niche interactions that can be explained by how a mod works. Like Zada's Blast, or, you know, Toxin Lash Acid Shells. Like, that makes enough sense. Why it works that way, I don't really know, but I can understand that, like, oh, Acid Shells, for some reason, again, it should be more clear, I think, but Acid Shells procs the Toxin Lash hit. Okay, that's not the hardest thing to understand, but you know, stuff like, again, it all sits on a spectrum. This one is a bit of a yapping. You guys will probably have stuff to say in the comments for it, but yeah, 3, I don't really like the bug mechanics. I don't like the spaghetti code. I understand its charm, but I think it's detrimental to some people's brains, especially new players, when layered on top of the damage communication struggle that DE is facing. And for me as a veteran player, as someone who's trying to educate, I find it incredibly frustrating. Let's move on. Number 2 is a little more positive, and number 1 is gonna be, oh boy, I'm not excited to look. Okay, anyway, number 2, it is very unlikely that you have found what you love most about this game. There is simply too much random shit to do in Warframe. Even thousands of hours in, I am learning not just new things, but entirely new activities. The ability to use sigils properly, dojo and base of operation building techniques, fishing, companion breeding, and trading for profit. Speaking of profit, there's like 1 gazillion ways to make platinum, the game's premium currency, which is crazy, by the way. That's a whole nother topic. There's guaranteed to be at least 1 or 2 activities you enjoy to make some decent plat, to do other things you enjoy. Even if it's not the most profitable, it's fun, and that's what matters. You know, the most effective thing will be the thing that you can stick with and enjoy and keep playing. Even if the meta platinum strat, quote unquote, which doesn't exist, you are miserable with, if you find something that's slightly less optimal that you enjoy, you will make infinitely more plat that way. So yeah, there's just so much stuff to do, whether it's level capping, dojo building, educating other players, helping new players, fashion frame, build crafting, making your orbiter look like an episode of HGTV, Riven gambling like a degenerate, Kubo breeding, or doing literally nothing but flirting with Aoi, spending 3 hours on an Octavia Manticore beat, and logging off, and maybe playing the game like The Sims. Some people do that. There's just so much to do in this game, and honestly, it's a shame that not all of it is well advertised to players outside of the game. And a lot of these things, specifically, especially the more niche ones, aren't even advertised within the game itself, right? And it's not even D's fault. There's just too much. The sheer amount of both popular and niche content is insanely overwhelming. But treat this opinion as a sign to try something new. Warframe is like pretty easy to get burnt out of, especially depending on whether where you're at in the game, either literally, physically, or mentally. Like for example, farming Noko in the Arbicep recently gave me like a mental crash out. That was awful. And also not only that, but like teach new players what you enjoy. Show new players what you love about the game. It might be something crazy niche. Like I recently learned about sigil placement and spending like hours in a dojo or like a lighting room trying to optimize sigil placement. Right? Like I learned about that and then I applied it to my own frames. There's just so much to learn in this game. Likewise, ask other players, what do they enjoy the most? I can promise you that not every player plays the game like you do, and everyone has their own little echo chambers. I get it, especially like the Warframe space, because it's so education and optimization focused. It's not really as much of a social environment. So I get like everyone's got their own little cults of what they enjoy, dojo builders and stuff like that. But you should be at, spread what you enjoy about the game, but also ask other players what they enjoy, and also teach new players some of the cool niche stuff. And no one really knows what Warframe is on the surface. New players, like they see an ad for Warframe, they boot it up, they start playing it, they have no idea what they're getting into. They are opening a Pandora's box of stuff to do, and guiding new players through that experience so they can find what they really enjoy and stick with the game, enjoy the game, talk about their hobbies and what they love about Warframe. I think it's something that, has lost, it needs to gain more value. There's just so much to do and not enough of it gets talked about. Again, Warframe's easy to get burnt out of, right? Especially some of the more popular spammable content. I've farmed Protea for like probably a collective 15 hours, and I was put in a very dark place mentally. I had a period after that where I didn't play a single mission, but I came out with every single frame I owned having like a completely reworked fashion frame loadout. So there's just so much to do, and it's very unlikely that you will ever find what you love most, so you should at least try to find everything you love. And maybe for you, level capping's your thing, Void Cascade's where it's at, you're just a tryhard. That's okay. Love that a lot. But you should really give everything else a shot. You never know what you might enjoy. You can spread it with others. Make Warframe a more social experience. To me, Warframe has never been as social as I'd like it to be. That's just due to the nature of the game to some extent. It doesn't really force teamwork very much. And so this is a good community building tool where it's like, again, I don't think you're going to find it, but there is so much to do and you should try everything, at least give it a shot. So yeah, number 2, it is very unlikely that you have found what you love most about this game, but you should at least try. Let's move on to number 1. I'm going to take a bath after this. Oh, Lord. Hi, chat. This is the Turbo Monculus from the editing room. This opinion was scripted and I went heavily off script. And then as I went off script, I had a revelation about life. And my opinion here might be a little bit bad, but you'll it's very paramount that you listen to this entire recording because you'll hear me come to my revelation about how I truly feel. But yeah, just please, before you leave a hate comment or whatever, which you're allowed to do, that's well within your right, just listen to the whole thing towards the end of the video. Thank you. I'm just in the editing room and I'm like, this guy sounds like a bumbling moron. So yeah, enjoy. See you in a little bit. Hot take number 1. This one, it's gonna be rough. Okay. Hot take number 1. Not every frame should be able to do everything. This one I'm gonna have a hard time justifying because it is the most vibes-based opinion I have. The other ones I feel like I can substantiate really easily. Not to say that they're factual, but anyway, there's two kind of schools of thought in regard to this, right? There's the if everyone's OP, nobody is type deal. And you know, that means that there's less potential for like toxic experiences, and that fulfills the power fantasy, which Warframe has been leaning into heavily with like the what balance Pablo tweet and whatever. You know, and the other school of thought is kind of like a one where like you have to build and organize a team comp, and that's something that's a little bit more difficult and requires more social activity to create like a team comp that's greater than the sum of its parts and requires a real social effort. But that can also be a barrier to entry, and Warframe doesn't need any more barriers to entry, trust. With the current system, the same content kind of gets finished anyways, solo with 4 players or 1 player. You can solo like basically everything. And I'm not saying that one school of thought is better than the other, but both have their outcomes. So like it feels like there's kind of less identity in Warframe sometimes because the outcomes look the same. It leads to kind of inconsistent power standards where it's like, okay, well, Gara can nuke using no LOS ability, but like now Dante needs there's a lot of inconsistency in the way the frames are balanced because they're meant to do the same thing, but for some reason we treat the abilities as if they're distinct even though they're effectively the same. This is kind of weird to explain, but it also leads to more like somewhat aggressive tiering where it's like niches are kind of obliterated. Now, there's still niches in the game, like, okay, Wisp and Volt can speed up mobile objectives, which is really nice. Titania's movement is second to none. But, like, the kind of content that is in the game, right, which is a lot of it, I would say 80% of content, that's even generous, could be 90, is based on your kills per minute. Can you kill everything fast enough? That's basically it. And so because of that, every Warframe doing the same thing is even more detrimental because we're all just, the outcomes are just the same. The way you do it, again, Warframe is a game with a lot of style, a lot of individual, like all the frames are super unique in the way they do things, but the outcome's like always the same. And I just think something more along the lines of like roles would be interesting, where like you have a reason to have a support, a reason to have a tank. And I don't know how to incorporate that or explain that. Again, this is just my opinion. This is pure vibes based stuff. It leads to more like aggressive tiering where it's like if every frame is able to do everything, then they're all being judged by their ability to do a large swath of tasks, which means certain frames just get put to the bottom. And again, because every frame is so strong, this isn't really a huge problem. But I would just like some sort of change that encourages more like rolled playstyle. And that would lead to some kind of like semblance of difficulty that would help us create more challenging content. And I understand the difficulty pilled folks probably want to hear something like that. And again, I kind of, I'm unironically asking for help because I'm trying to explain why I feel this way, because not every frame should be able to do everything is a feeling that I have, and it's a thought that I have that I agree with and I know I agree with, but I'm trying to figure out exactly why I don't want that. I just like more unique experiences. All the outcomes feel the same. You know, obviously I'm just locking a different flavor of ice cream. The ice cream does the same thing. It fills my tummy every time, but I just feel like I'm doing the same thing over and over, just with a different Warframe. I'm trying to, let me ask you guys for help. If you feel this way, or if you don't feel this way, let me know in the comments why you feel that. Because for me, this is just such a vibes-based thing. I just want more like social content. I want more teamwork. Maybe I just want more teamwork. Maybe that's really it. I want Warframe to be a more social game. And I think the lack of social content, and I'm not saying it's like a social, desert or anything, but I think that more reason to play as a team, and a communicative team, with and difficulty is a great way to encourage communication. It's a form of innovation. It's a form of adaptation. I think would be really cool. I think that's part of what I want here. So yeah, my hottest take here is that I really don't think this whole like power fantasy thing, I think it's really good, but not every frame should be able to do everything. If you want to be a really, really OP support, you could do that and build that, but then like you would limit your build in other ways, but that's okay because maybe you have a DPS Protea who can do a whole bunch, right? Again, maybe I'm like schizo posting here, but if you have these thoughts like I have, please comment on them, or if you completely disagree, comment your thoughts as well. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I have next week should be, happy holidays by the way, next week should be the yearly tier list. Oh Lord, please prepare for that. The opinion jump scare will be even more severe than this one, I'm sure. If you guys have any preferences for content coming soon, please let me know. If you enjoyed this one, hype, sub, like, comment, whatever. I have so much love for you guys. Thank you for the blessing and the opportunity to make this content for you. You have ideas for content, leave them in the comments. This is kind of your channel. I just run it, edit it. I make this stuff for you. I enjoy it. I love it. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next one. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.